Another day, another new month. April is here, and with it comes many things. Easter, baseball season, daily misery and loneliness, but of course a chance to reflect on all the movies and TV shows that I had watched in March. So here it is, my breakdown and review of everything that I had wasted my time with. Shout out to Carson again for this video idea, and I'll try not to waste any more of your time. Let's jump right into it. So I started them on watching all the Rocky films. I made an entire video ranking all these movies, link in the description, so I won't talk much about it here, but I will say good series with a ton of mediocre movies. Then I watched Sarah's Key for a class that I'm in, and I found it to be one of the weaker Holocaust films that I've watched. The film makes a very odd cinematic choice of telling its story both in the present and back all the way in the past of the genocide. The issue with this film is it never makes the present day stuff interesting enough to justify taking away from the much more engaging Holocaust storytelling in the past. Overall, the film never really recovers from this creative choice and it's just kind of meh. Then I watched Creed 3 and it was fine. My main issue with this film is that Michael B. Jordan's character comes off as extremely unlikable despite Adonis being one of the more likable characters in the series. Jonathan Majors is so good in this film and he makes it impossible to root against him. The fights are tremendous and the film is definitely serviceable, but it suffers from the Rocky 5 curse of just making the main character feel like he's punching down. It never felt like there was a real underdog challenge for Creed to overcome, something that's kind of vital to the core of these films. And overall, it was just good. I followed that by watching 99 Homes, a story that follows Andrew Garfield, who plays a father who's evicted from his house and ends up getting hired by Michael Shannon, the same man who evicted him, to help his business of legally stealing homes. The film is definitely worth a watch, with Garfield giving an unsurprisingly elite performance, committing himself fully to this character that the audience will immediately grow to care for. The film mainly succeeds through the tremendous work from Michael Shannon as well, who is so evil and despicable in this movie. I absolutely love it. I think the third act of this film sort of falls flat, but overall it's a really good watch. Then I watched Downfall, also for school. This is a film that follows the final days of both Adolf Hitler and Berlin during World War II, and holy shit, yeah, it's pretty damn great. Everything in this film feels so human and authentic, despite it following a man who's so monstrous and has almost become myth in our history. Hitler is portrayed as a broken and pathetic man who's being haunted by his own delusions. Berlin is a failing city, and watching the people who are so indoctrinated into the beliefs of the Nazis battle the Soviets despite the fight being lost was just so eye-opening to the power of the propaganda and control that Hitler had. This film is really tremendous, but it just overstays its welcome for a little bit too long. Then I finished The Last of Us, and wow, what a weird show. The show features some of the best writing on any television show I've ever watched. Episode 3 is my favorite thing I think I've ever seen in TV in years, and episode 8 is also a banger. I just feel like that the show spends a lot of time being way too afraid to be its own thing. The finale ends up being completely flat, mostly because it decided to replicate the end of the game frame by frame. You might be saying, well, why would they change something that's so perfect? Well, just because the ending of the game is so masterful doesn't mean that the writing translates well to the screen and these actors. They should have kept the same themes and structure as the game, but modeled the dialogue and the actions around the cast and the pacing of the TV show. Something that lacked in both the finale and some of the other episodes. Overall, I did really enjoy the show though, which may shock you since I just spent this entire time bitching about it, but overall, it is a really good show. Then I watched the first 2 episodes of Mando Season 3, and I gotta say this is by far the worst season so far. I feel like the show has sort of lost its step in the sense that there's no real direction in this season. I don't get where we're going with it. I don't really understand what any of these core characters want. They're just kind of hanging out, fighting the monster of the week, and it all just feels reused and generic. I trust Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to kind of turn this one around, so I'm pretty optimistic on what the rest of the season will look like, but for now, it's just not that great. I followed that by watching Fire of Love, a documentary that was just nominated at the Oscars. It depicts 2 people who study volcanic eruptions and who end up falling in love with each other and spending their life and their craft together. I found this to be a really gorgeous documentary that both displayed the beauty of volcanoes, something that these 2 people would have loved the audience to glimpse, but also the emotional value of love. This one's definitely worth a watch if you're someone who enjoys these really quiet and relaxed documentaries that also have a really emotional pull. I then watched all of Martin McDonagh's movies, but I made an entire video on that as well, link in the description. They are all amazing. Then I watched I Lost My Body. This was an incredibly unique French animated film that told a really fantastic story about grief and trauma. This film is paced really well and quickly inserts a hook and a mystery for the viewers to stick around for. The characters are really great, and I also appreciated the voice acting in this one. The animation was done really, really well, specifically the scenes following the severed hand, and overall this film was a great watch with an incredible ending. I then watched Our Father after a customer at my job gave me a brief description of this hilarious yet terrible situation that the show is based on. This is a documentary about a doctor who works as a sperm donor who lied to patients and used his own specimen on patients. This led to him being the father for over 100 different people, many of which you meet in this documentary, and my god is this thing the craziest story. Though I do believe the documentary ends up sticking around a little bit too long and retreading some of the same story aspects and some of the same historical aspects near the end of it, it's still a crazy watch, and it's definitely something that I feel like everybody should kind of experience, to be honest, in just a weird, funky way. Then I saw the 6th Scream movie, and I loved it. I think this might be my favorite in the series. It takes the Ghostface character to New York City, where we get an incredibly violent and intimidating version of that iconic character. Seriously, Ghostface gave me Terminator vibes in this film. The main cast of the characters are so great, with Melissa Barrera being a perfect lead for this franchise, and of course course, Jenna Ortega doing her thing. The twist in this film was definitely a little bit predictable, but did still feel really satisfying and earned. I'm really sort of excited to see what they do next with this franchise, because the way they ended this one, it feels like they could pretty much go anywhere with it. There's a pretty large grouping of possibilities that the writers can take and do something really unique and new with this series and keep evolving it. I'm just glad that after that travesty that was Halloween ends, at least one of these classic horror slashers is thriving. Then I watched a documentary about MH370, the Malaysian flight that disappeared a few years ago. I found it to be entertaining but sort of frustrating in a way. The series is good at detailing the incredibly mysterious set of events surrounding the plane's disappearance, telling us the facts as is. But then the series decides to give a large amount of screen time to absolutely ridiculous and baseless theories that have easily been disproven. And although the series does give time to the opposing side of these theories, the amount of time wasted on nonsense sort of downplays the true events that we know based on facts. It was still very engaging though. Then I watched Emma Stone's Easy A, and I didn't really like it at all. It was one of the weaker and more predictable high school films I've seen, and although I appreciate Emma Stone's complete commitment to this character, I mostly found it to be very annoying. I want to say more, but to be frank, it's been 3 weeks since I've watched this, and I've already forgotten just about all of it. But then I watched Puss in Boots 2, and oh man, is this one a surprise. This is an incredibly fun movie with a fantastic animation style that rivals just about any animated show or movie out there. The story here is actually incredible, with really great themes relating to death and aging. The character of Death himself is by far the most intimidating movie villain I've seen in all year, and I also love the pacing of this film. This thing flew by and was just so much fun to watch. I really think kids are going to eat this one up and hopefully bring more interest into the Shrek franchise. Like, let's get Shrek 5 or like a Donkey movie. I feel like it's well overdue. Then I watched the Oscars, and they were actually not terrible this year. Jamie Lee Curtis winning over literally everyone else in that category was a little bit silly, but everything else is pretty much as expected. Everything Everywhere All at Once won pretty much all the big award categories, and All Quiet on the Western Front won all like the technical ones. And Ke Huy Quan made me cry.
This is the American dream!
I followed that with John Wick 4, and I made a whole video talking about the John Wick film, so I won't waste much time here. But I really love this one. I just thought it was a little bit too long. Then I watched Bad Education for School, and I did not like this one at all. I spent half the runtime distracted by my phone, so maybe that's why it didn't work for me, and it's definitely possible that I'll give this one another go next month. But I found this one just to be kind of a major slog. I then saw Shazam 2, and this film is really underrated. An absolute blast and a perfect movie for families and anyone who enjoys comic book movies. The film doesn't take itself too seriously, and the corny superhero comedy actually kind of works because the film stars children who can actually sell the immaturity of those jokes. I thought Lucy Liu was great as the villain, and the final fight was done pretty damn well. I had a really great time with this one, and I have no idea why WB decided to not market it at all. I followed that with The King of Comedy, and this is already a top 5 movie of all time for me. I actually watched this 3 times this month because it's seriously that good. To me, this is Martin Scorsese's best film, and by far Robert De Niro's best performance that I've seen so far. Displaying so many different ideas and themes in this film perfectly. The display of fame and troubles that come along with fandom. The delusions of belief at times, as well as commitment. Rupert Pumpkin is one of the best written characters I've ever seen, and although he is absolutely insane and constantly proves himself to be out of his fucking mind, there is a sense of relatability with his character that makes it so you can't really help but root for him. By the time you get to the finale, everything just plays out so perfectly. I also want to commend the pacing of this film. There is never a dull moment, and I feel like every single scene is like a new gift to be unwrapped, with something either entertaining, hilarious, or just kind of depressing taking place. This is seriously one of the most entertaining films I've ever seen, and I'm still trying to truly grasp my own interpretation of the ending. Go watch this film because it's as close to perfect as a movie can get. I followed that up with another banger in Michael Mann's Heat. This is one of the few films that earns an insanely long runtime, truly working itself to be a crime epic, pitting Robert De Niro and Al Pacino head to head in a classic cops versus robbers story. The film deals with the idea of a person's nature and the things that we do and become and sacrifice for. The action in this film is raw and violent, but never becomes the focus point, choosing to always focus on the characters' motivations themselves and what pushes them and them confronting each other. This leads to 2 major action sequences, one coming near the end of the second act and one in the finale, both of which are incredibly well done and lack an overuse of CGI and ridiculous action that modern films hold, instead having a sense of practicality that kind of just feels gritty in a way. The guns are loud, the fighting is hard, and the whole thing just feels real. This is a classic for a reason, and it definitely was a great first watch. I then watched the first 2 episodes of Lucky Hank, and so far I'm enjoying it. The first episode didn't really hook me, and I found it to be a little bit lacking in originality, but the second episode was a huge improvement, completely engaging me with Odenkirk's character in this. I'm excited to see what they do with this one, and follow me on TikTok, link in the description, or sub to me here, because I'll be doing weekly short reviews for every single episode as they release. I then rewatched The Prestige for the 10,000th time, and yes, Christopher Nolan is the GOAT. This film is damn near perfect, and if you haven't seen it, it's about 2 rival magicians played by Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, who go to extreme lengths to outdo each other, with endless twists and turns that are done in only a way that Nolan could have pulled off. Go watch this movie. I then rewatched most of Succession and the first episode of season 4, and yeah, this is a top 3 show of all time. It's amazing, it's hilarious, it's incredibly well acted, and at the end of season 4, I'll make a longer video discussing the entire series as a whole, so I'll save my specifics for that. that. I also watched the entire Before trilogy, but I'll have a video out this week covering all 3 films, so stay tuned for that. Then I watched A Spectacular Now, which I went into thinking it would be this cheesy high school romance movie, and man, I was wrong. Well, sort of wrong. It definitely has its cheesy romance stuff, although Shailene Woodley and Miles Teller have really good chemistry in this thing. But the story here is just really strong. Miles Teller is such a damn good actor. He's so underrated, and he carries this film with his phenomenal performance that really hooks you in. The story goes a lot deeper than just that relationship part, and it really focuses on overcoming the obstacles in your life and being yourself. Overall, I thought it was just absolutely fantastic and one of the better high school movies. Then I closed out the month with Princess Mononoke, and sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, a Studio Ghibli film from over 40 years ago that somehow beats just about every single animated film released today. This film is really simple and tells a similar theme to that of like the Avatar movies, with the war between humans and nature, which is represented by animals and a forest fighting against humans. The film is just absolutely gorgeous, and it opened up some weird childhood nostalgia in me for some reason, despite me never seeing this as a child. It just reminded me of a lot of those old animated films that I used to watch as a kid. The finale is amazing, the voice acting was actually pretty good for the time period, and overall this is just a great movie that I think everybody can probably appreciate. There's a little bit of something for everybody in it. So that's it. If you like what you see here, why not subscribe and turn on notifications, because I have more content on the way. Besides that, try to enjoy your day.